On November 10th, 2013, the body of 24-year-old Lily Hart was discovered at the Miller residence. What appeared to be a tragic accident soon unraveled into a web of lies, betrayal, and murder. Police would uncover a shocking truth about the deadly affair that shattered this once peaceful household. In early 2012, after Bethany's marriage fell apart, she found herself alone in her large suburban home. Her ex-husband had moved out, leaving Bethany to deal with the aftermath of their broken relationship. The loneliness felt heavier each day, and she longed for something to fill the void. Peter, her son, had stayed with her during this time, balancing his college work with frequent visits from his girlfriend, Lily. Bethany welcomed these visits, as they helped distract her from the emptiness she felt inside. She observed their relationship, noticing how deeply Peter cared for Lily, and in the beginning, Bethany was happy that her son had found someone who brought him joy. As the months went on, however, Bethany couldn't help but feel an unexpected pull toward Lily. She admired the young woman's energy and beauty, qualities that Bethany felt she had lost over the years. What started as simple admiration slowly grew into something deeper and more complex. Bethany's feelings for Lily became difficult to ignore, especially when Peter would leave them alone during his busy school days. By mid-2013, the subtle tension between Bethany and Lily became palpable, though unspoken. The atmosphere in the house began to shift, as Bethany found herself more drawn to her son's girlfriend in a way she hadn't anticipated. Peter's schedule became more demanding, and Lily often stayed behind to keep Bethany company, offering to help around the house. At first, their time together was innocent. They bonded over small things, household chores, cooking, or sharing stories about their lives. But as the summer months rolled by, something changed. By late August 2013, their relationship had shifted into something secretive, something neither of them could fully explain. Bethany, hungry for connection, began to see Lily not just as Peter's girlfriend, but as someone who could fill the emotional void left by her failed marriage. The two women found themselves meeting in secret, their interactions becoming more frequent and intimate. These moments offered Bethany a sense of escape from her pain, but they also sparked a possessiveness she hadn't anticipated. The affair continued in the shadows, growing more intense as the days passed. Lily, however, was torn. She still loved Peter deeply, and the guilt of her involvement with his mother weighed heavily on her. What started as a comforting distraction for Lily had now become a tangled mess of emotions. By the time fall arrived in 2013, the weight of the secret was too much for Lily to bear. She tried to pull away from Bethany, hoping to return to her normal relationship with Peter, but it was already too late. Bethany's feelings had grown stronger, and she wasn't willing to let go. On October 5th, 2013, Lily made the decision to end the affair. She wanted to focus on her future with Peter and put the troubling relationship with Bethany behind her. However, Bethany couldn't handle the rejection. In her mind, Lily had become the only source of happiness in her life, and she refused to let that slip away. Bethany's possessiveness turned into desperation. She saw Lily's attempt to leave as a betrayal, one that she couldn't accept. The tension between them escalated as Bethany sought to maintain control over the situation. Over the following days, Bethany's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began trying to manipulate Lily into staying, using guilt and emotional pressure to keep her close. Lily, already overwhelmed by the guilt of betraying Peter, found it harder and harder to resist. Bethany's need for control and Lily's desire for freedom clashed, creating an intense and volatile situation in the Miller household. Lily could see that Bethany wasn't going to let her go easily, but she was determined to put an end to the affair once and for all, no matter the cost. As the days passed, Bethany's hold over Lily tightened. Their once secretive affair had turned into something darker, driven by Bethany's fear of losing the only meaningful connection she had left. Lily, trapped between her guilt and Bethany's emotional manipulation, knew that things were spiraling out of control, but she didn't yet realize just how far Bethany was willing to go to keep her. The situation between Bethany and Lily quickly spiraled out of control. Bethany, desperate to maintain her grip on Lily and ensure that the relationship would never be exposed, became increasingly manipulative. By late October 2013, Bethany had begun to find ways to interfere in Lily and Peter's relationship without drawing suspicion. On October 22, 2013, she decided to escalate her actions, sending an anonymous message to Peter, implying that Lily was unfaithful to him. The message was short but destructive, casting doubt in Peter's mind, which was exactly what Bethany wanted. Peter, confused and hurt, confronted Lily about the accusation later that evening. Lily, who had been dealing with the guilt of her secret relationship with Bethany, immediately denied any infidelity with another person, though she never imagined Bethany could be behind the message. The confrontation left Peter more uncertain about Lily's loyalty, and the strain between them began to grow. Although Peter tried to hide his suspicions, Lily could sense that something was wrong, and it only added to the tension she was already feeling. As the days passed, Lily's fear of their secret being exposed intensified. She had tried to end the affair, but Bethany's possessiveness made it impossible to walk away. By early November 2013, the situation reached a critical point. On November 5th, Lily decided she could no longer live in fear. She threatened to expose the affair to Peter, hoping that by confronting the truth, she could finally free herself from Bethany's control. She knew it would hurt Peter, but she believed it was the only way to end the chaos that had consumed her life. Bethany, however, was not prepared to let things unravel so easily. On November 7th, she warned Lily that exposing their relationship would have severe consequences. She implied that if Lily told Peter the truth, it would not end well for anyone involved. Lily, terrified but determined, stood her ground, knowing she couldn't continue living with the weight of her secret. As the tension built between them, it became clear that things were rapidly spiraling toward a dangerous conclusion. On the night of November 9th, 2013, everything came to a head. Bethany and Lily found themselves alone in the kitchen, the air thick with unresolved tension. They had argued before, but this time was different. The stakes were higher. Bethany was desperate, knowing that her secret was about to be exposed. She pleaded with Lily to stay silent, reminding her of everything that could go wrong if the truth came out. But Lily had reached her breaking point. She refused to back down. The argument quickly escalated. What started as a heated exchange of words became physical. In a moment of blind rage, Bethany grabbed a vase from the kitchen counter and, without thinking, struck Lily over the head. The impact was immediate, and devastating. Lily collapsed to the floor, the vase shattering beside her. Blood pooled around her head as Bethany stood frozen, staring at what she had done. The room, once filled with their voices, was now silent. The reality of the situation began to sink in. Bethany hadn't intended to kill Lily, but it was too late. Lily was gone. For a moment, Bethany was paralyzed with shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The woman she had become so obsessed with lay lifeless at her feet, and there was no undoing what she had done. She didn't know how to fix the situation, and panic quickly set in. Bethany frantically tried to clean up the scene, but it was already too late. There was too much evidence of the violent struggle, and she couldn't erase the damage. On November 10th, 2013, Peter returned home early from a weekend trip, unaware of the nightmare that awaited him. He stepped into the kitchen and immediately noticed the shattered vase and bloodstains on the floor. As he looked closer, he saw Lily's lifeless body lying on the ground. Panic overtook him as he tried to make sense of what had happened. He immediately called the police, barely able to comprehend the scene before him. His mind raced, trying to piece together what could have led to such a tragedy. The police arrived at the house shortly after and began their investigation. On November 11th, 2013, they determined that Lily had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The broken vase and the position of the body suggested a violent confrontation, but there were no signs of forced entry. This led investigators to believe that Lily had known her attacker, making the circle of suspects smaller. Peter was immediately questioned, but he was devastated and clueless about how this could have happened. He had been away all weekend and couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm Lily. By November 12, 2013, the police turned their attention to Bethany. They brought her in for questioning, and she played the role of a grieving mother figure to Lily, carefully crafting her responses to avoid suspicion. She told investigators that she had no idea what could have caused this tragic event, but the police were not convinced. As they dug deeper, they found inconsistencies in her story. The more they learned about Lily's attempts to distance herself from Bethany, the more suspicious they became. On November 15th, 2013, the investigation took a significant turn. The police received an anonymous tip that hinted at an inappropriate relationship between Bethany and Lily. Detectives began to explore this lead, and what they found shocked them. They uncovered a twisted dynamic between the two women that pointed toward a possible motive for the crime. Bethany had been obsessed with Lily, and as their affair began to fall apart, so had Bethany's grip on reality. By November 20th, 2013, the police had obtained a search warrant for Bethany's home. During their search, they recovered deleted text messages and emails between Bethany and Lily that painted a disturbing picture of their relationship. The messages revealed Bethany's growing desperation and Lily's attempts to escape from her control. The police also found forensic evidence that tied Bethany to the crime. Her fingerprints were discovered on the broken vase, and analysis confirmed that the bloodstains matched Lily's. On November 25th, 2013, Bethany was arrested on charges of second-degree murder. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community, and Peter was left devastated by the revelation that his mother had been involved in Lily's death. The tragic end of the affair exposed the deep-rooted deception and manipulation that had torn the family apart. Bethany, once a grieving mother, now faced the reality of her actions as the investigation into Lily's murder came to a close. The trial began on February 3, 2014, in a crowded courtroom. The community had been following the case closely, shocked by the scandal that had erupted within the Miller family. News of the affair and Lily's murder had drawn attention from across the state, and reporters were lined up outside the courthouse to cover every detail. Inside, the tension was palpable as Bethany faced the jury, her once calm and collected demeanor now replaced by a nervous and frail appearance. She knew her life was on the line, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The prosecution wasted no time in laying out their case. They presented the murder as a crime of passion, focusing on Bethany's jealousy and possessiveness. They told the jury about the secret affair that had consumed Bethany and how, when Lily tried to end it, Bethany had lashed out in a violent rage. The prosecutors highlighted how Bethany's obsessive need for control had driven her to murder, showing the text messages and emails between her and Lily as evidence. They pointed to the messages as proof that Bethany's behavior had become increasingly erratic in the weeks leading up to Lily's death. The prosecution also emphasized the brutality of the crime itself. They described in detail how Bethany had struck Lily with the vase in the kitchen, shattering the object and leaving her to die on the floor. Forensic experts testified about the force of the blow, explaining that it was no accident but an intentional act. They argued that Bethany had been consumed by jealousy, and when Lily threatened to expose the affair, it pushed her over the edge. The prosecution aimed to paint Bethany as a manipulative and dangerous woman who couldn't stand the idea of losing control over the one person she thought gave her life meaning. Throughout the trial, the prosecution called several witnesses to the stand. Neighbors and family friends spoke about the strange dynamics between Bethany and Lily in the months before the murder. They mentioned how they had noticed changes in Lily's behavior, how she seemed distant and stressed whenever she was around Bethany. The prosecution used these testimonies to show that Lily had been trying to distance herself from Bethany, which only made Bethany more desperate and possessive. As the prosecution laid out their case, Bethany's defense team tried to counter the damaging narrative. They argued that Bethany had been emotionally fragile due to the collapse of her marriage, which had left her vulnerable and unstable. They claimed that Lily had manipulated Bethany's emotions, and that, on the night of the murder, Bethany had acted in self-defense. The defense suggested that Lily had become aggressive during their argument, and that Bethany had struck her out of fear for her own safety. The defense also attempted to highlight Bethany's mental state leading up to the incident. They brought in psychological experts who testified that Bethany had been suffering from severe emotional distress, exacerbated by her recent divorce and the breakdown of her relationship with her son. The defense painted her as a woman who had been pushed to her limits, arguing that she never intended to kill Lily and that the act was a tragic result of her fragile state of mind. Throughout the trial, Bethany sat silently, her face pale and expressionless. She appeared hollow, as though the weight of what she had done had already consumed her. Peter, sitting in the back of the courtroom, struggled to look at his mother. The trial was not only about justice for Lily, but also about the destruction of the family he had known. The revelations about the affair had left him shattered, and the idea that his mother had killed the woman he loved was almost too much for him to bear. On February 17, 2014, after nearly 2 weeks of testimony, the jury began their deliberations. The courtroom was silent as everyone waited for the outcome, knowing that the verdict would change lives forever. The jury deliberated for 3 days, carefully reviewing the evidence and the arguments made by both sides. The prosecutors had presented a strong case of premeditated violence, while the defense had tried to humanize Bethany as a victim of her own emotional turmoil. Finally, on February 20th, 2014, the jury returned with their verdict. They found Bethany guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was filled with a mix of emotions, relief from some, sorrow from others. Bethany sat motionless as the sentence was read. 25 years in prison. She would be eligible for parole after serving a significant portion of her sentence. But the reality was that she would spend most of the rest of her life behind bars. Peter, who had remained silent throughout the trial, left the courthouse in a daze. The truth of what had happened between his mother and Lily was still sinking in. He couldn't understand how the woman who had raised him could have committed such an act. The betrayal was too deep, and as much as it pained him, he made the difficult decision to cut all ties with Bethany. He knew that he couldn't move forward with his life while holding on to the past. In the weeks that followed, the Miller household fell into silence. Peter packed up his things and moved out, unable to stay in the house where so much tragedy had taken place. Bethany was transferred to a state prison, where she would spend the next 2 decades reflecting on the choices she had made. The once quiet suburban neighborhood that had been home to the Miller family was now a place haunted by the scandal and murder that had destroyed a mother, a son, and the life they had once known. The case left a lasting impact on the community. Neighbors who had once been close to Bethany now spoke of her in hushed tones, unsure of how to reconcile the woman they knew with the murderer she had become. Peter, trying to rebuild his life, remained distant from the town, forever marked by the tragedy that had torn his family apart. At least he was able to move on from this tragedy. We have cases like wife's affair with husband's grandfather ends in murder, where everything fell apart in devastating ways. Be sure to check it out.